Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hello, here we are again. Time for episode 9 of our season 3, nearly the end of our 3rd season, and we have another guest. So we've talked in previous seasons about personal development and more recently about feeling overwhelmed at work, feeling stressed and burnout, as well as new jobs and taking steps out of your comfort zone for development. So here's our next guest. Levanah, the Buyers Coach, a career and life coach for buyers and retail professionals. So Levanah is an ex-buying manager turned retail coach, and we are so excited to have her on to tell her story and also to relay some of her memories of working in buying, because we're sure she's got many, many to share. So hi, Levanah.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
No
This is very exciting.
It's so exciting. It's so nice that we finally managed to get this in. So I know we've been talking for a little bit now, haven't we? So, yeah.
I know, it always takes a while, doesn't it, to align. Even when you're out of, you're not in a crazy buying office anymore, life still happens. So yeah, we're here now.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, so shall we just kick off with
started.
How did you get started? How did you get into buying? And what was your love for it? And what was your what were your dislikes in it? Everybody, wants to hear the whole story. So how did it...
Wow, yeah, you've just said a lot of things there. So that's going to take me a while.
Unpack it all.
Yes. So I started at a similar time as both of you, actually. So I came into the industry in 2009, so 15 years ago now, which seems insane how quickly that's gone.
Doesn't it? It's like you've blinked and we're here.
Happened.
I know, with children and all sorts of different things. But yes, I'd always been obsessed with clothes and style and fashion from probably as young as my daughter, probably 5 or 6. And I'd always loved it, but I kind of had this fear of actually going and studying it. And this is a little bit ridiculous because then I did go into fashion buying, but I didn't go down the design route. And I went to university and did illustration, which I loved.
Ooh.
But then what happened was about a year in, I got a part-time job at Jigsaw.
Uh-huh.
And they were just an amazing company to work for. So we would get in, and I think the shop opened at 10 o'clock. But from 9:30 till 10, at least once a week, might have even been twice, they would do like a really in-depth training. So it might be that we had a new, I don't know, like a new fine cashmere jumper or something that was about to land into the store. And they would educate us on which mill had produced that, kind of that whole...
Oh, wow, there's a huge amount of detail. I thought you were going to say that, they'd tell you, because I worked at River Island, sort of similar kind of age probably, and, something would come in and they'd be like, oh, we've got these new jeans. They're called the Terry jeans. They retail at this, and this is what you could style them with. I thought you were going to say something like that, but that's amazing. That's fascinating
incredible.
To give you so much background on it.
Yeah, it really was. And I think, I just had this love of putting things together and style and fashion, but I'd never really thought about
Where did it come from?
Appears. And I'd kind of, I understood design and that, but it was that first insight into all of the other elements and how in-depth that process was. And I suppose because they were a higher end high street retailer, they had that resource and they really felt it was important so that their salespeople could really educate the customer, I suppose. And it was just really interesting. So that's kind of what triggered something. And then I started kind of looking into different roles. And I didn't know anything about buying. I didn't know anyone in buying.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how it would have been through Jigsaw. I would have realised that they had this whole head office and that this was an option and this was a role. And then, I don't know if you remember, but in our university library, there used to be something called the Black Book. Did you have this at university?
I don't know if it was called that, but yeah, I think I know where you're going with this, but I don't think it was ever called.
It might not have been called that, but it was a Black Book. And it just had all the press office contacts. Like, it didn't have buying contacts, but it had all of the retailers' press offices. Really old school, but it was literally on paper.
I love that.
Wow.
I do not think we had that. That's brilliant.
And one of my housemates was doing fashion marketing, I think, so she'd told me about this resource.
Yeah.
And I just went through that and just basically cold emailed as many press offices as I could in London and tried to get some work experience.
That's amazing. What uni was that? Where were you?
I was at Birmingham, but not the fancy Birmingham. I was at the art Birmingham.
That was like me in Leicester. I was at Leicester Uni, but not Leicester Uni. I was at De Montfort.
You were at De Montfort, yeah. It's down the road from me now.
Yeah.
And just sent out all of these emails, and I ended up getting a couple of placements. The first one was at Warehouse, and I did maybe 3 weeks at their press office.
Brilliant brand.
I did not love that press office, but that was interesting. And then I went to M&S, and I did a few weeks there. And what was amazing there was, although I'd gone into the press office, I got on really well with the girl that I was working with and I just said to her after about a week, look, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm really interested in design and buying. Is there any way that you could kind of put me in touch with other departments? Would you be up for that, even if it's at a later stage? And amazingly, she did.
Great.
And so I did a little stint on design, I think, from memory. It's such a long time ago. And then I ended up on what would have been Limited Collection, I think, at the time.
Oh, great.
I love Limited Collection.
Yeah, which was like the coolest bit to do.
Yeah.
The funnest one, wasn't it? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was. And it was a lovely team. And I'm still in touch with a couple of those women now, actually. And I just kind of kept going back. They couldn't really get rid of me. So every time we had a holiday at uni, I'd go back down to London and I'd do another week and I'd be like, what do you need now? And I was very keen and very eager to just get into it. And I kept doing that, graduated, moved home, moved straight down to London, slept on my friend's sofa for the whole summer.
Yes. We've all
Did
been
an
there.
internship at WGSN.
Oh, did you? I love WGSN.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And actually, in hindsight, I mean, that would, if I'd have gone down that route, that would have just been
down that trend
another
forecasting route.
fascinating
I
world.
just felt like they all had really cool names. Like, I think one of our account managers was called like L or something like that. And then there was like, I don't know, just they all just seemed
I thought you were going to be saying something much more exotic than L. I was like, what? What was it? Fatula or something?
Yes,
Fanula.
it was something like that. Yeah, there was a few. Or like, I can't think now I'm saying it. I can't think of the actual names. But they all seemed really cool for school.
They were. I definitely didn't feel very cool, even at how old have I been? 21. Yeah, you're right. There was some cool. I mean, Levanah's a funny name.
Yeah, that's a cool name.
Maybe you could have.
You could have sobered in there.
No, I miss my calling. I did that, and then because I'd saved some money through Jigsaw. I think I saved £4,000. I remember it, and I literally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to eat soon. And then M&S rang me at the beginning of October, and they were like, "There's a job coming to do." And then I started as a BAA in October 2009. So that's a very long story, wasn't it? But that's how I got started. And then I just loved it from the beginning. M&S was amazing when I started. I had some really good teams. I was always on women's wear and then accessories, and kind of flitted between the two for my whole career over the next 13 years.
Yeah.
That's nice that you had the variety of the different product types, being able to do the apparel, but also then having the accessory side as well.
I felt like M&S was a lot more. They mingled a lot more with the women's wear and the accessories, didn't they? Like, I've worked at other businesses where it's been so separate, and you're on normally you are on a completely different floor anyway, but you wouldn't talk to one another. But at M&S, they did, didn't they? And they wanted to know what everybody else was doing and how to collaborate.
Whereas you heard of like places like Topshop where they'd sort of pit you against each other, you wouldn't want to share, like Tops wouldn't want to share what they were doing with trousers, because what if they took their best selling and then they had the best selling style or whatever, so that's
I mean, women's wear, yes, I've lived all of those experiences. And it's kind of the most exciting hub, but it can also be the most toxic hub, and both those things can kind of be true at once. But I think in general, M&S was pretty good, and I stayed there 3.5 years. Then I went to Tesco, then I went to BHS, then I went to Fat Face, and then I landed at George, and I spent 6 years, including my maternity leave, at George before I left.
Great.
Which is a very whistle-stop tour of quite an
brilliant.
extensive career.
Such a great variety of retailers there. And what did you love the most about buying?
I don't, what did I not love? Actually, no, I know what I did love.
We can get onto that later.
That's a dangerous question, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's kind of divided. It's like almost in my 20s, I loved most of it.
Yeah.
And then in my 30s...
You have the energy for it, don't you, in your 20s?
Yeah, I think
like,
that's
you
it.
don't need much sleep. It's fine. Like, you know, you'll just work all the time and party hard. And
You don't have as many other responsibilities that you're needing to juggle as well.
That's it. I think at that stage of my life, I was just all in. And I felt like it was still very aspirational at that time. Like I would look at my senior buyers, particularly at M&S, because it was enormous, as you know.
Yeah.
So these women in these roles were in big jobs.
Yeah.
And they had lovely lifestyles and they travelled so much. And they had the autonomy to run these departments. And it was highly creative. And it was kind of all of those things.
Yeah.
The creative, the strategic side, the idea of being able to go to Hong Kong one day.
Yeah.
All of these things and being able to provide a lifestyle, having come from a background where I didn't know anyone that did this. And it was very much just starting and working your way up, but being able to see that it was achievable.
Yeah.
I just loved it. And I just found every day to be different. You know, you're never bored. I met some good people. I'd moved to London. So you had that lifestyle and you were out all the time.
Yeah.
It was just exciting.
Yeah. I completely resonate with all of that. I'm sort of nodding along. Yeah. I think what would be really great to understand is where did the sort of shift in your attitude come from in terms of wanting to leave? I'm sure it was a really hard decision to make.
It was a combination of all sorts of different things. And I think I'm really fortunate that I didn't leave hating it.
Yeah.
I didn't leave on bad terms. I didn't get pushed out. It was a choice. But the timing kind of made my mind up for me. And I suppose the longest story of it is, even in my 20s, when I wasn't even thinking about ever having a family one day, didn't know if that would be something I would want to do. I wasn't necessarily that type of person until I was, if that makes sense. And I would kind of look at amazing women who maybe were juggling it, and some of them do it incredibly well, and everyone's different. It's very personal, isn't it? But I did see a lot of stress and I did see a lot of struggle of that pull of like, I want to be the best here and I want to be the best there, and it's really hard to marry the two. And you know, we all know the system's not caught up with what we're doing nowadays. It doesn't support it. And it's hard. So I kind of always had in my mind, if I do have a family one day, is this buying thing really going to be the thing that I do until, what is it now, 67, 60? I will just probably work forever, won't we? But,
70, 80.
That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah,
sure.
But whatever it is, and I just couldn't quite see it. And then I think when I met my partner, and quite early on, we had conversations about what we valued and what we wanted out of life, and we did want to start a family. Then it was kind of, okay, a 10-day trip to China with a baby at home. Can I handle that? Probably not. Like, I was already getting more tired handling those trips on my own by that stage, having them lots of times. And I don't know, it just didn't feel, it started to feel quite repetitive. It started to very much feel like this cycle. And to your point, it was getting harder. There was less resource and we were all doing more work. There was some sustainability things, that didn't sit well with me. And I think I worked with good retailers and it still didn't sit that well with me. So it didn't feel sustainable, both in terms of the role, what we were putting out into the world, or personally. And then what happened was I'd had Anna, my little girl, in November 2019.
Yeah.
George had an amazing maternity policy. I was really lucky. So I had a year. Obviously, that year was quite weird because it was COVID. So I had a few weeks, which was great. I had the normal birth. We had the normal health visitors. We were very lucky. But then we went into lockdown when she was about 14 weeks old or whatever it would have been. And we went through that. And then when I went back to work, we were just going into another key lockdown. So we sort of fully worked remotely, which was a whole new world because I didn't know what Zoom was when I went on maternity leave. It wasn't a thing. We were always in. There wasn't that flexibility.
Same. Microsoft Teams. What's that? Like, I remember getting it before we went into COVID, and we all thought, we're not going to need that. We're sat next to each other all the time. Why do we need this? And then suddenly it was like a lifeline. You know?
Yes, I think I recognised the little little logo on my laptop. I was like, I don't know how this works. What is this? Which is mad, isn't it? So yeah, I went back. It was a whole other world. Oh, and what I'd missed out is my partner got made redundant halfway through the 2020 when we had a 7-month-old baby.
Oh,
so that's
God,
pretty
no.
stressful.
Oh,
Really
that's so
stressful.
So we were kind of hoping that I could go back and maybe ask for a job share. Let's be honest, it would have got refused, but George did offer a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to ask, but then his job completely changed. So I thought, no, you're just going to have to go back and deal with it later, do what you need to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
Went back and essentially had that flexibility where I was going in maybe twice a week. It's an hour's drive, so it's a little bit of a way. But we were able to have my daughter in nursery 3 days a week. My mum lived near George, so she would have her on a Thursday, and I got a 9-day fortnight after trialling it for about 6 months. And we would juggle her between us on a Friday. So it was some sort of balance, which was good.
Yeah.
And then a few things happened. We had a bereavement. It was just quite a stressful time. And it felt then like almost overnight, my other half's work really took off in terms of consultancy, and he was having to go away and travel for 3 weeks at a time.
Oh, wow.
And then I needed to start traveling again. And there was just this crunch point where there was no one in the country, because we don't live near our families, to look after our child.
Oh, gosh.
And you can't really take them to China, can you? Really?
And it was only going to be an Italy trip, which I really would have quite enjoyed.
Oh, I loved those ones. Yeah.
I know, because I was on footwear for the last 18 months.
Okay.
It would have been Lake Garda, it would have been lovely.
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
I know, double whammy. But I was looking at the critical path and trying to work it out. And do you know what? If I'd have said to them, I just can't do this trip, they probably would have come up with a solution.
Yeah.
But I think my mind was already made up, and it was a matter of timing. And I just thought, technically, I can't fulfill my contract here. And I think it's just time to go. And I didn't have my plan, so it was very scary.
Yeah.
But I'd saved. So I had a safety net for about 18 months, because basically we hadn't done anything through COVID, and I'd done a share save.
Yeah.
And I don't live in London anymore, so I could kind of, it's
Yeah.
a little bit more affordable in Nottingham.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I had a really honest conversation with my boss, who was great. And I left. And then I had to work it all
Right.
out.
It's just like, how did you feel that sort of first month of leaving? And, you know, you've had such a hectic life, juggling all of that childcare and juggling an insane job. Like, how did you feel that first month?
Honestly, it just felt really freeing.
Yeah.
And I also felt, without getting into too much detail and boring you, it had been quite a traumatic couple of years.
Yeah.
And I just needed to recenter myself.
Yeah.
And just be. And we kind of had, and you know, what a privilege to be able to do that. And I don't take that lightly, but I had worked hard to kind of save to do that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But me and my partner spoke a lot about it. And I did end up working part-time quite quickly. And I was helping him with his business from day one. But really, I just kind of sorted our house out and sorted our life out. Just kind of...
all these things you probably had on your list of things you wanted to do and never had time to do.
Yeah.
So that kind of took us up to July 2022. So yeah, 2 years ago. And then I suppose a short version of it is that first year was very much kind of regrouping and working out what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
And then I started retraining this time last year.
Yeah.
I launched my business at the start of this year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
It's a whole new
inspirational.
world now. It's very different, but I'm enjoying it.
So much love for the industry, but it's so nice to know when you're having one of those moments in life where you're just feeling backed up against the wall and there's nowhere to turn, that there is. If you just step away, breathe, have a think, there is always a solution. So yeah, I'm a massive advocate for life coaching, and I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, so you probably want to get onto that quite quickly, don't you?
We do.
So Levanah, do you want to tell us a bit more about what you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely. That would be great. Yeah, so I mean, it completely changed everything for me. I think when I came out of buying, I knew I had all of these great skills and I knew I could be good at something. But I think we get quite conditioned into thinking you're a buyer and that's really specific and that's kind of what you can do now. So it is really hard to come out and kind of work out what on earth you want to do next. So I ended up having coaching about 6 months after I'd left, and that gave me the clarity and allowed me to move into what I'm doing. But the reason I'd kind of got attracted to it was I had a friend who is amazing, and she is actually a makeup artist. She was sort of one of my best friends from uni's sisters.
Right.
And we were both in London at the same time, and we'd gotten really well. We were both bridesmaids at her sister's wedding and stuff. And obviously makeup and that world, incredibly tough industry. She'd battled lots of toxic stuff, but she'd managed to kind of come out of it right at the top. She'd moved to LA. She'd got the red carpet work. She'd got like the top agent.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
I know, she's amazing. And she's really just lovely and normal. And she'd managed to do all of this. But she kind of got to the very top and still didn't feel fulfilled. And basically what happened was she started doing kind of YouTube tutorials and doing all of this educational stuff and helping aspiring makeup artists.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, all of her work was just taken away because she couldn't be on set. She couldn't be doing all of that. Everything just shut down. And so it forced her to like really rethink how she created a business and how she made her money. And basically she ended up coaching creatives, and she now runs this incredibly successful coaching business.
Amazing.
And I was kind of watching this from afar, not connecting it to myself at all a few years ago, but just thinking that's really interesting how you can kind of take this skill and this industry and this expertise and then help other people with it. And, you know, really what she's doing is mindset work, but to be so specific and be able to target people that have kind of walked in her shoes and are really struggling to get the portfolio right or get in front of the right people, get the clients. And she just managed to kind of create this movement, and I found it so inspiring.
That's amazing.
It can be
And
so
I just
hard.
kept coming back to it as a concept.
Yeah.
And I had no confidence with it at all. I just thought, well, you're just a buyer. Like, who are you to be able to coach somebody? But then I kept thinking, well, no. And I suppose this is one of the first coaching techniques. Instead of it being, oh, well, why me? It's more, why not me? And if she's been able to do it, and, you know, I know her and I knew her 10 years ago and I've watched that path, why not give it a go? So I ummed and ahed about it, and I went and had coaching myself and did loads and loads of work because my confidence actually I didn't realise how low it had got, but it wasn't in a good place at all. So that was a bit of a painful process, but very, very useful. And then sort of decided to go for it and train this time last year. And then I set up, but the plan wasn't initially to work with buyers and retail people at all.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. And I think, to be honest, I think I was just avoiding it. I think I was kind of, I've come out of it. I want to do something totally different. I want a fresh start. I'm doing my thing over here kind of thing. And it just sort of naturally happened where people started getting in touch, a couple of people that I'd worked with years ago. And then I started to think, well, why are you avoiding it? It makes so much sense. Why don't you just combine your worlds? And actually, I think when you're in something and you feel like it's not working for you and you decide that you might want to leave, you kind of think it's just you. Even though I know that the industry is really tough, and of course lots of people are maybe thinking in that way or they're not happy, you could still kind of think it's a you thing. So I didn't maybe connect how much scope there was with that either.
How many people are going to need your help and need an outsider's opinion, but actually an insider's outside, if you know what I mean. You're slightly removed from the situation, but you're so involved because you know what it's been like. So you can really identify with them, can't you?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because it's someone that has to fully understand your world. So that clients or prospective clients don't need to go into this level of detail. You just innately understand how weird a buying office can be. How, like, you know, all of the stuff that you have to have been there for, but that you're far enough removed, but you're not a family member. You don't know too much about their lives, and you've got that neutral expertise and obviously trainings that can help them get unstuck and kind of go on to do what they want to do. So it just kind of naturally happened and then spiraled around April. And now everyone I work with is from retail, which is amazing. And it is actually really lovely to think, well, I've not left that 13 years of hard graft behind. I've just kind of blended it into this new thing that feels totally flexible and positive, which is lovely, really.
And like you say, just
having days, there's loads to do, but it's good.
Having that insight into it is what you need, because I find it so frustrating sometimes when you can talk, and it's not that, you know, this is life coaching sort of aside, but just chatting to somebody about what you do, or a frustration, I don't know, coming home and chatting to like your husband, your boyfriend, or a friend, and saying, oh, I've got this, you know, this has been happening, and or, you know, and I can't get my head out of it, and they just say, oh, we'll just do this, and you're like, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. You don't understand. You don't understand what it's like, you know, and that's just chatting to somebody about the situation. And that's not even having somebody that understands what the situation is, but then also, as you say, can use techniques to kind of like, I don't know, I've not done life coaching myself, but draw things out of you and help you to kind of come to the conclusions or ideas or, you know, next steps that you need to take, but helping them to discover that on their own, but coming from a place that really understands.
Yeah, it's just that support and that space. And I think that investment of time, and I think for a lot of buyers and retail people, it's not, that's not our world really, is it? It's very much achieve, do, on the wheel, like constantly moving. We don't often kind of sit and allow ourselves time where we're like, right, for an hour a week, I'm going to really invest time in myself quietly, in a neutral setting that's confidential and safe and all of this. It's just totally different. And I think especially for people that are juggling other things as well, you know, maybe parenthood or different situations outside of work, they just feel listened to.
Absolutely.
And then it's just asking that question that they would never think to ask themselves, and then it can unlock a whole different pathway for them.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about personal development within buying, haven't we? And how it always felt like we didn't have enough time for it. You
didn't
know,
have
especially in the
enough
junior years.
Not for proper personal development.
Yeah.
Not the kind of the time for reflection. You know, personal development or like, you know, getting to the next level would be do.
Yeah.
It would be raise your profile. What more can you take on? Can you take on another project? Like that would
do
be
more all the time.
Yeah, that would be your personal development. That would be how you next, you know, get to the next level. That wouldn't be actually like a reflection on you and what, you know, what skills are you good at, where do you need to improve, like, you know, PDRs would be once a year, and you'd be lucky if anyone had actually done it. It would be something that someone would scribble down. And
it'd be very rushed.
And saying that from not just somebody, you know, that's received them, but also somebody that's had to do them. I would have loved to have spent a lot more time, and I think I probably, you know, started by spending a lot more time on some of the first ones I did, and then suddenly there'd be a deadline to get them in, but so many other things going on, and I'd be like, God, I've got to do everybody. So and not spending enough time on everybody.
And I really loved that part about my role. I loved nurturing and developing people, and I think so I had a boss come in and we were trying to work out my career path, and he said to me, had I thought about going into HR? And I was like, HR? That's nothing to do with buying. Why would I want to go into HR? You know, but like if you think about it, a lot when you get higher up, a lot of what you do is you know, people management and nurturing, and also not you know, everybody has a different learning style as well, and I found that really interesting, and especially when I started doing life coaching with quite a few different life coaches actually, and they kind of gave me a little bit of insight into the fact that, you know, you need to have different ways of approaching things with different people, you know, introverts and extroverts. You know, I had one girl that was a massive introvert, and she just thought, I can't do this industry as much as I love it, but I'm not an extrovert and I need to stand up and perform. Because quite a lot of buyers are extroverts, or they're the people that you remember. You don't necessarily remember the introverts, but there are some really good introverted buyers as well. And like I remember sort of saying to her, look, don't be afraid. There's all these courses you can go on for introverted presentation skills and things like that. Like you don't have to be that loudest person in the room, and often the quietest person has the best thing to say anyway, don't they? So, you know,
because they can listen.
Exactly. They'll just say one line at the end, and everyone will be like, oh yeah,
they're so much more considered with what they've said rather than just like throwing things out and around the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those points are so valid. Like I absolutely loved the coaching side of my role, and obviously that was a big factor as well into then deciding to go and do it, because I did just always love it. But then to your point as well, you just never had enough time. So when you were coming up, and even when I was leaving, there was never enough time for my own development, but you also didn't have that time to invest back into your team because they were just pulling the resource out. And so, I definitely think there's so much scope for that within retailers. And it's really interesting because there are so many companies that hire in external coaches and they really do invest. And I feel like it's going to take retail a while to catch up. But that would be so amazing if they could do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously with the the economy at the moment, it's really hard for them to
Exactly.
spend money on that, isn't it? But it's a lack of foresight though, in some ways, you know, like
Yeah, because they would get it back absolutely
tenfold,
in retaining staff and the output that you would get.
Exactly.
We could talk about that for a long time.
No,
definitely.
We'll still keep shouting about that. And I think that's really great that you're working with people within buying as well. And like, it's not necessarily about what do you want to go and how do you want to leave. It's about, a lot of what you're doing is about helping people in there that might, you know, I'm speaking for you here, but I assume, you know, a lot of business that I've worked in, you know, the management skills are just not there, and they, like we said, they just don't have the time for it, and they don't have maybe the skills for it sometimes, because you just get thrown into these managerial roles, don't you? And so I think what you're doing is amazing for people that could just get some of that external validation, external support that isn't, you know, there for them at that moment. Okay, so we've told you about our little segment called Retail Therapy. So I think if you've got an amazing story to tell, should we jump
or two or three?
Yeah.
I know, I sent you a little snapshot, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Oh no, gosh, where do I start? I just think we all go through so many ridiculous times, don't we, in buying? There's just so many things that we could reel off.
Sure.
But I do remember, I won't name them, I do remember a head of buying who had borrowed, shall we say, a lovely cashmere sample from the racking, and had proceeded to go into quite a big meeting in it. And she looked fabulous from the front, but on the back there was a really big swatch cut out.
Oh no!
And no one dared tell her all day, but that sticks in my mind from kind of early on in my career.
But you were just like, serves you right for stealing my samples.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, didn't want to say, but come on, you can afford the cashmere.
Yeah.
Stop taking cheeky samples off the rack.
Yeah, I do remember that one. And then I did a solo trip to Hong Kong. This wasn't actually that long ago. This was when I was at George. So yeah, when would that be? I don't know, 6 years ago. And I got stranded because there was a typhoon.
We've all been there. They're so scary to experience the first time, aren't they?
I know. Well, I'm a really nervous flyer, which is ridiculous, seeing as I've been a flyer for years. But I really hate it.
That's so funny when you mentioned that the other day, Levanah, because I was like, I'm not alone. I am exactly the same. Like, I've flown so much for work.
When you thought you were the only buyer that didn't like flying.
I absolutely hate it.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, like, anyone that's had the displeasure of having to travel with me on a flight, I just publicly apologise to them because it's just not fun.
I used to hold random people's hands, but it's like a nervous, you know, twitch. Like, I just go, and I think I grabbed some man's leg. Oh my God, honestly. Like, and they're just like, can you stop that?
It's so common though, isn't it? And I think it's probably actually quite, because I've heard of lots of people in the industry that really don't like it. And I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of us that go into that world can be a little bit controlling. And I think to put it lightly, and I think the flying thing is just kind of your worst nightmare.
Maybe that's
you're in
what
a
it is.
tin can in the sky and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
that is so true.
Everything's out of your control.
That is so true.
Yeah.
I blame the internal China flights because I find that they take off, so they go along and then they suddenly are upright and then like a rocket, they're in the air, and it's just.
You said this on one of your podcasts because I was listening to it and I was yes, that is the worst.
Yeah, no, I think that's what really started it for me.
Because I was due to, so I'd been in Hong Kong and seeing suppliers, and then I was due to go and see a couple more in Shanghai. So we got locked down. I mean, first world problems. I got locked in the Shangri-La. So, you know, that was But then I had to go on the first available flight out the next morning, and it was this enormous plane, even though it was only a 2-hour flight. But you know, the ones that, like a proper big long haul plane where there's like 6 seats in the middle and 3 either side.
Yeah.
And the turbulence on that flight, I honestly thought I was going to die.
Oh God.
And then got there, managed to get through the meeting. And then I was going, so I think I did all of this in a day. I think I flew there in the morning, had a 2-hour drive, had like a long appointment. And then a driver was going to drive me back to the airport in Shanghai to fly home. And it was pitch black by the time I left. It was a really late flight. And I was just assigned whoever was driving me, language barrier, but all good. And I did trust, you know, I'd done it before with this flight. I did trust it. But about an hour and a half into this journey, he just pulled off this massive motorway.
Oh God.
With like no lights into this lay-by. I was like, oh my God, is this how it's going to end for me?
Oh God.
But he just needed a wee.
Oh my God.
That was quite a weird 36 hours for someone that's just the worst traveller.
I really feel for you.
But yeah, I've got loads more. I've got so many, but those are two that...
Those are your top two.
Stood out.
Amazing. Oh, thanks very much for that. I think a lot of people will relate and resonate with those stories and everything you've been saying on the podcast.
I know, and I feel like there's still so much we could talk about, but I'm just like, I can see the time and I'm thinking, gosh, I think we are going to have to come to an end. But it's been been so lovely having you on. So lovely hearing your story.
Thank you for having me. No, it's been great.
And we'll share your details in our show notes as well. So any of our listeners are interested, then they can
get in touch.
Head to your website.
Yes, perfect. And Instagram is probably the best place to find me, really. That's where I share. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I do have a website, but really, I'm talking the most and sharing the most information on Instagram. So come and say hello on there if it's of interest to you.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, thanks very much for your time. We'll speak to you soon.
We'll speak soon.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No.
Drama just makes things interesting.
That's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.